Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph will begin Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis, 2 dots right at the bottom. Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amar Talmud Echad. So we learned in the Mishnah that a certain Talmud said in the name of Rabbi Shmuel. He said that the Machlokes Beis Sham Beis Hillel, whether you need a lechi and a kar or a lechi or karam, did not relate to a case where the opening or the entranceway was less than Dalet Ames. It's only if it's between Dalet Ames and 10 Ames. That's where the Machlokes is. And Rabbi Kiva said they argue in both cases. Back to Gemara, Rabbi Kiva Hainu Tanakama. It seems to be that Rabbi Kiva is saying the same thing as the Tanakama, that they argue in both cases. The Gemara answer is the machlokes and nafkamin between the two is that halacha that he said that if it's less than 4 tefachim, if the entranceway is smaller than 4 tefachim, that over there you don't need any tikkun whatsoever. And it's not clear who holds what. What does Rabbi Kiva hold? What does the Tanakam? But there is a difference in this halacha that if the entranceway is less than dalet tefachim, do you need a tikkun at all? Tanya, we learned in the Brayso, Rabbi Kiva. He said the Rishon never said this, that what the Talmud said in his name is not true. A Talmud said it, made a mistake. He made a mistake, Rabbi Shmuel never said it. Talmud, and the halacha is like that Talmud. You're saying that Rabbi Shmuel never said it, it's a mistake. And therefore that's not the halacha. And then you're saying the halacha is like that Talmud, so it seems to be a steer, a contradiction. What's the pshat? He only said it to be machade the Talmidim. And as Tosfos explains, it's not the normal explanation when you say lechade the Talmidim. Over here what it means is that he wanted to praise the Talmud. I mean, he said clearly that the Talmud made a mistake. So it's not like we find regularly and throughout Shas, the Talmidim, that he wanted to see, to catch them, to see if they were really watching him, listening carefully. He clearly said that the Talmud made a mistake. So he didn't say l'chade the Talmud to see if they would catch and see if he was making a mistake in what he said. He wasn't trying to trick them with it. He was praising the Talmud. He wanted to say, oh, Allah is not like him, but he's saying a good svarim. In a svar, he's saying something very good. So he wanted to be mechanam, to sharpen them, to see if they would now analyze and see, oh, what was the svara that he said? What was that svara that Rabbi Kiva was praising? And then they would start to analyze it and think into themselves. Rav Nachman gives a different taras. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, Nirin Itmar. He said that, he didn't say the halach is like this Talmud. He said that it's near. He said that even though the halacha is not like that, but he said near, what he's saying is a good svara. He's saying a good svara. So he never really said that the halacha is a Talmud. Whenever we find this expression that a certain Talmud said in front of Rabbi Kiva in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, who are we referring to? Eino ela Rabbi Meir. We are referring to Rabbi Meir. Sheshimish as Rabbi Shmuel as Rabbi Kiva. He was a Talmud of both Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. It's referring to Rabbi Meir. The time we learned in the Brayso on Rabbi Meir, it's Rabbi Shmuel. So we see from the following Brayso that he was a Talmud of both of them. He said, when I was learning Torah by Rabbi Shmuel, so he was a sefer. He used to mix this kankantum ingredient into the joy, into the ink. It helped it remain permanent, that it would be indelible, it wouldn't be rubbed out. And he didn't say anything, he didn't object to it. But when later I went to learn by Rabbi Kiva, Asr alai. He asr on me, he forbade it, he said it's asr. Is that correct? That we see from the Brayso that he learned by both of them, but the order seems to be reversed. Here in this Brayso it says that first he learned by Rabbi Shmuel, and then he went to learn by Rabbi Kiva. we see from the following. He said that when he went to learn by Rabbi Kiva, so from here we see that first he went to learn by Kiva. He used to put the ingredient into the joy, the kankantum, and Rabbi Kiva didn't say anything, he didn't object. But when I came to Rabbi Shmuel, so here we see that first he went to Rabbi Kiva to learn, and then Rabbi Shmuel. And so he said when he went to Rabbi Shmuel, it was Rabbi Shmuel who objected. He said, B'ni, what is your work? What do you do? He said, I'm a sefer. Amrli B'ni, Avizor, B'malachcha, be very careful with your work. Shemalachta Malachas Shamayim, because that is Malachas Shamayim. Yoisik Malachas Shamayim, writing Sefer Torah. Shema Tamachasu Eitzachas, Miyater Eitzachas, maybe you'll add a letter or subtract a letter, and Matzasa Machar Salam Kulam, and you can destroy the world. You can destroy the world with it. So, Taisa says that, what are we talking about? What are we referring to? So he says, for instance, Taisa says that if he would add a letter instead of Bereshis Bora, he said Bereshis Bora, we added a vav, boru, so that would be chas v'shalom, that would be machdoilam, be apikarsis. We say it in the plural. So Taisa gives an example of that. Or if another example would be if he would subtract a letter instead of saying emes, he subtracted the aleph and he wrote mes. So he said, be very careful because one extra letter or one letter missing could destroy the world. Amartiloi, Rameir answered, Davar Yeshli, he said, Davar Echad Yeshli, I have a certain ingredient of kankantum, Shemai, it's called kankantum, Shani Matal, Seichad, I put it into the ink. So, and that makes it indelible and it won't be erased. Armeli, V'chi Matil, kankantum, Seichad Yoy. So Rabbi Shmuel objected, he said, are you allowed to put a kankantum to Yoy? It says by a saita that you write the parasha of the saita of a person if his wife is suspected of being mazana. So they have the whole procedure of the saita, and you have to write the parasha of the saita, and it says then you erase it in the water. So what's written on, it has to be in ink that can be erased. It has to be written on a ksav that can be erased. Now, if you put kankantum, it can't erase it. So now, we're analyzing the brisa. We seem to have a stira in the order. Yes, we do see here that he was Rameir, was a Talmud both from Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva, but it seems to be a stira in the order of where he learned by whom. And also, who said that kankantum is mutar and kankantum is aser. So, my kamala, my kamaharale. So in this last discussion with Rabbi Shmuel, what did he say? What did he answer? So Rabbi Shmuel said to Rabbi Meir, be very careful because malach tells malach Shemayim. So he said, loimi boy b'chaseres v'yaseres loitayina. He said not only about adding a letter, subtracting a letter, that I'm not going to make a mistake the bakiyana because I'm a bakim, an expert. Ela filo mechesh l'zvuv nami. But even for a fly, that if a fly would land on it and erase the letter or cause an error in the letter, Dilma Yosef, maybe he'll sit on the tag of the dalet, erase the tag, and now it'll look like a resh, and distort the letter and corrupt it. So even for that, you don't have to worry because because I have kankantum and it won't get erased. In any event, however, kasha shimush kasha asra. We have a stira on the shimush. What was the order? Who was he mishamesh first? Who did he learn by first and who second? And who asra kankantam and who didn't? So bishlam shimush like kasha. The kasha is not a kasha. What was the order? The order was as follows: Mikara also the coming to Rabbi Kiva. First, he came to learn by Rabbi Kiva. Now Rabbi Kiva was a big amkin. He used to penetrate very deeply, and he had great amkos and analytical skills. So he could not come to the depths of his heart. So then he left Rabbi Akiva, also the Kamid Rishmal, V'Gomer Gemara. Then he went, so first he started Rabbi Akiva, it wasn't Matzliach, went to Rabbi Shmuel, and he learned the Gemara. He learned through the Bikiyas, so to speak. Not to say Bikiyas in the way we use it, but learned the Torah Kula, the Yediyas HaTorah. V'Hadar also the Kamid Rabbi Akiva, so his Svara, and then he came back to Rabbi Akiva and was Mamik and learned to the Svaras. So that was the order of where he saw first by Rabbi Akiva, then Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. Ela Asr also Kasha, but who Asr kan Kantam and who didn't Kasha, that is a Kasha. We have remained that with a Kasha. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Meir Haya Omer. Now, Gabi, this halach of kan Kantam, he said Rabbi Meir used to say L'chol matim kan Kantam Masechet Yoy. Where everything you write in Kisvei Kodesh, you are allowed to put in kan Kantam in ink, chutz mi Parshas Saita, except for the Parshas of Saita. Rabbi Yaakov Omer, Rabbi Yaakov Omer Mishmai, chutz mi Parshas Saita should be Mikdash. Not the Parshas Saita when you write a Sefer Torah, but the Megillah when if they wrote a Megillah for a Saita in the base of Mikdash over there, then you cannot put in the kan Kantam. My Beinayu, what's the difference between them? The question is, the chiluk is, can you take a parsha of Saita that was written in a Sefer Torah? They had a Sefer Torah. Can you take the parshas Saita from that Sefer Torah for the purpose of a Saita? If you can, then you can't write the parsha of Saita even in a Sefer Torah with kan Kantam, because it has to be able to be ksav she'al chalimchus, that can be erased. Now, if you can use the parsha of Saita from a Sefer Torah, then it won't be erased, so it's possible. So if you hold that you could use the parsha of Saita from a Sefer Torah, you can't put kan Kantam even in the parsha Saita of a Sefer Torah. But if you say that you cannot use it, if you cannot use the parsha Saita from a Sefer Torah, it has to be the parsha Saita which was written specifically for the Saita, then you say that Megillah Saita cannot have kan Kantam, but a Sefer Torah, and even the parsha Saita of a Sefer Torah could have it, because you can't use it for a Saita anyway. V'hani tanoi k'hani tanoi. So the Morris wants to suggest that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yaakov, these Tanoim are like the following Tanoim. The time we learned in Zabraisa, Ein Megillah Share Lahashkavoi Saita Acheres. If a parsha Saita was written for one Saita, you cannot use that Megillah for a different Saita. If it was written for one woman, it cannot be used for another woman. Rav Acha bar Rav Yeshia Amar, he said, Megillah Share Lahashkavoi Saita Acheres. He said, no, it is kosher for another Saita. So if you say that the Sefer Torah, the Gemara is assuming at this point as follows. If you say that a Megillah Saita from a Sefer Torah can be used, so therefore apparently the Megillah Saita does not have to be written specifically for this particular Saita, for a specific Saita. But if you say that it cannot be used, then it has to be written specifically for this Saita. So similarly over here, it's a machlekes, can you use a Megillah that was written for one Saita for a different Saita? But the Gemara says, no. Maybe they're not connected. The Tanakhama said over there that if you have a Megillah Saita that was written for one woman, you cannot write for a different woman. Ela came into Inkid L'Shem Rachel, Lo Sulei Hadra, Inkid L'Shem Leah. Since it was now written, and you wrote it for one woman, Rachel, for instance, it was now taken away, it was removed from the rest of the women, it was designated for this particular one. You can't write it for a Leah. It was already designated for this one. But that doesn't necessarily prove that if it was written in a Sefer Torah, Stam, it was not written for any woman. It doesn't say specifically, therefore you don't see that you can't use it for a Saita. Maybe perhaps Davka the Tanakhama says here, when it was designated for one woman, it can't be used for another one. But if it's written in the Sefer Torah Stam, perhaps it could be. And on the other side, maybe it's not the same. You can't compare the two because maybe he only said it over there that if it's written for one site, you could use it for another site. Because Saif Kol Saif, it was written for a site. So even if it was written for a different one, you can use it. But maybe the Islamic Siva, but by a Sefer Torah, which was not written for a Saita, it was written to learn from, maybe it cannot be used for a Saita, so therefore you cannot compare the two Machlaikas. The Gemara, where you're saying the Rav Achai, the Rav Yesha, says that if it's written for one Saita, you can use it for another one. The Gemara, the Rav Achai Bar Yesha Hadisnan, doesn't do we hold what we learned in the Mishnah. Cause of get legarish hasishta. If a person wrote a get to divorce his wife, and he changed his mind, ben Iroi, and he found another person living in the same city. Va'amar, and he said, Shimcha Kishmi, your name is like my name. And your wife has the same name as my wife. So your name is the same, the woman's names are the same, the city is the same. So he said he has this get, so now use it for your wife. The halach is possible garish by, but you can't use it. So you see that a divorce, a get that was written for one woman cannot be used for another one. And here you're saying that a Megillah Saita that was written for one woman could be used for another one. Where says how can you compare it? Over there by a get the Torah says v'kosel. It has to be written for her. Being ksiv lishma. It has to be written expressly for this particular woman. But it doesn't say because of law by the Megillah Saita. It says law. Being an asiyah lishma. You don't need the ksiva lishma, you need the asiyah. What is the asiyah? And asiyah da mechiki. The asiyah is the erasing of the parasha Saita, putting it in the water, the erasing it in the water. That has to be done specifically for this particular woman. If you have a Megillah Saita that was written and then put into the water and erased, now you cannot use that water to give to another woman. But the ksiva, he holds, if it was written for one woman, he holds you could write it for another woman. And Mashen came by Ged, where it says, because of law, the ksiva has to be lishma.